French voters over the weekend elected two outsiders to face off in the run to be the next president of France. Joining us to talk about the future for the country is former UK Independence Party leader and Fox News contributor Nigel Farage. He's the man who led the charge for the British exit from the European Union. Good to see you, Nigel. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
A lot of pollsters are saying that in the runoff in 2 weeks, Macron will win. A recent poll says he has 62% support. But these same pollsters, and even the market, they didn't see the British exit from the European Union. They didn't see the Donald Trump victory here in the U.S. So my question for you is, does Marine Le Pen stand a chance?
Well, Emmanuel Macron is completely unknown and untested. He's never been elected to anything before. He was a brief appointee for the Socialist administration. And you know something? I listened to his victory speech the other evening, and it was completely and utterly vacuous. Now, 2 weeks in the heat of battle in a head-to-head contest is a long time. My theory is that Macron is going to be found wanting over the course of the next couple of weeks. He clearly doesn't have a very firm political ideology other than just supporting the EU and the status quo. And I'll make this prediction, it is not going to be a 20-point win for Macron. It'll be a lot closer than that.
Right, so you don't think it's going to be 60% plus for him and 30% for her, so it'll be a little tighter than that. We'll see. What's the difference about the populist movement in France from the populist movement in the United Kingdom and the United States, for that matter?
Well, in many ways they're very similar. The difference in France is that the history of this is out of the French National Front. Now, this was led by Marine Le Pen's father for many years, and I think most people would say there were some pretty unsavoury aspects to it. It was linked back in the 70s and 80s to people who denied the Holocaust. It was seen to be a very chauvinistic political party. And that's why last night, dramatically, what Marine Le Pen did was to stand down as president of the National Front, effectively to fight this presidential election for the next 2 weeks as an independent. The difficulty with populism in France is the roots of it are somewhat unsavoury.
She needs a wider range of voters here. Where is her support coming from exactly, and who does she need to come onto her side now?
Well, I mean, she's already picked up a lot of support from the left. And
Young
there are
voters.
just look at the map. Just look at the map. It is northern France, eastern France and southern France where Marine Le Pen has got her support. She is doing well in areas where in the past the Communist Party or the Socialist Party did well, and that is linked to jobs. Now, to win over the course of the next couple of weeks, she has got to get those 20% of people who voted for the Conservative François Fillon to vote for her.
Right.
And instinctively, many of those Conservatives will be nervous about the rise of terrorism, will be very concerned about the powers of the European project, and that is where Macron is weak. On those two issues.
Well, they're going to have to pick. I mean, on May 7th, they're going to have to pick.
She has to get those Conservatives.
That's right, and they're going to have to pick. Whether they're nervous or not, they're going to have to choose between the two. Your view for the European Union over the next couple of years, we see the markets react. They roil back when they're nervous about the European Union and maybe France leaving the European Union. And yesterday, they celebrate when they get someone like Macron, which is everything status quo. What happens to the European Union?
Well, look, these are bull markets anyway, let's be frank. It's been a huge, extended bull run in all the stock markets. The markets have this, in my view, irrationality. They say that the status quo with the European Union is good. And I would ask all the analysts at the banks telling us this, tell me, what has the European Union, its single market and its single currency done for growth, jobs or global trade? And the answer is virtually nothing. And just as we saw these same analysts say that Brexit would lead to disaster, and yet the stock market is now 21% higher in London than when we voted to leave, the same people said that a Trump victory would lead to the US markets going down.
I got to interrupt. Let me just say one thing. First of all, nothing would be certainty for the markets, and the markets love certainty. As far as the British exit, it hasn't formally happened. So that really still remains a little bit uncertain going forward. Lauren?
Let me ask you that. How is Great Britain doing now that they've made steps to leave the European Union? It's going to take about 2 years. How is the country doing? There's a general election in the UK in June.
We have the biggest growth in exports for 10 years. We have the best foreign direct investment into Britain we've ever had. There is a slight slowing of retail sales, but nothing out of the ordinary. Brexit Britain is in good shape, and I would say this, much better shape than our neighbours in the Eurozone.
You know, there has been also a lot of focus here on some of the other elements that come into play. And what do you think are the elements that everybody else is focusing on? Including Donald Trump's first 100 days as president.
The big conversation is, are we going to have tariff-free access and reciprocity with the European single market? Now, economic logic says that given that the UK is the Eurozone's biggest export market in the world, it makes sense for them to have a tariff-free trade deal with us. Whether economic logic prevails or whether politically they decide they'd rather be seen to punish Britain for daring to leave the club, that remains to be seen. But, you know, America trades with Europe and the UK without a trade deal. China trades without a trade deal. Ultimately, you know, trade deals can help, but ultimately business is about, is your product the right price and the right reliability? And if it is, people will buy it.
Nigel, I have one more question for you. The French elite, going back to France, they support Macron. They say Marine Le Pen would endanger France. What do you say to that?
Look, it isn't just the French elite that back Macron. President Obama backs Macron. Mrs. Merkel backs Macron. All the global elites back Macron, because all the global elites believe in supranational government, where countries like France give away key decision-making powers to the European Union and elsewhere. And I would say, much as I think that Madame Le Pen's economic policies wouldn't be very good for France, she believes in an independent, sovereign France. What is to be scared of with that?
So if I've translated this interview correctly, Nigel, you think the market and the pollsters, as they've gotten it wrong in the US and in the UK, have gotten France wrong as well? That Marine Le Pen, in 2 weeks' time, stands a very good chance of reshaping France and the European Union as we know it?
I'm not yet going to call it for Le Pen, but I am going to say, I did call it for Trump last year, when people thought I was mad. I'm not going to call it for Le Pen yet, but I think there's going to be a real contest over the next 2 weeks, and whether she wins or not, she will have shifted the centre of gravity of the European debate in France forever.
And the runoff will be closer than we think. Nigel Farage, former UK Independence Party leader and a Fox News contributor, thank you so much for your time with us. Thank you.